31,000 feet above the Aegean Sea. Everyone on board Helios Flight 522 is dead. Everyone, except one man, alone in the cockpit. And he's not supposed to be there.
Helios Flight 522, do you read?
In the morning of August 14th, 2005, the sky over Cyprus was clear. Helios Flight 522 was preparing to depart for Athens. A routine hop, 90 minutes. In the cabin, families boarded. Vacationers, children, couples. 115 passengers, 5 crew members. Among them, Andreas Prodromo, a 25-year-old flight attendant off duty, taking the flight to be with his girlfriend. He wasn't supposed to be here. Up front, 2 experienced pilots ran through pre-flight checks. The aircraft was cleared, nothing unusual, no warnings. At 9:07 a.m., the plane lifted off into blue Mediterranean sky. A charter flight, budget airline, no frills, just fuel, altitude, and time. Minutes later, an alarm began to scream in the cockpit. A warning that should only sound on the runway. The takeoff configuration alarm, the pilots couldn't explain it. And as they tried to troubleshoot, another alarm lit up. The master caution light. Still, they flew on. No emergency declared. No descent begun. The plane kept climbing. In the cabin, oxygen masks suddenly dropped. The air grew thin. People began to lose consciousness. But from the cockpit, no announcement, no explanation, just silence. And soon, silence became the only thing left. Their voices never returned to the radio. They were already gone. The plane kept climbing. The sky grew darker, thinner. Autopilot held its course perfectly, as if nothing was wrong. But inside, 121 people were slowly slipping into unconsciousness. No fire, no explosion, no struggle. Just a steady drift into silence. And then, nearly an hour later, something moved. A figure entering the cockpit. Not a pilot, not a terrorist. The only conscious soul left at 34,000 feet. Now, he was the only one left awake. Somehow, he had lasted longer than anyone else. Long enough to see the masks drop. Long enough to realize the plane wasn't descending. Long enough to act. He grabbed a portable oxygen bottle, one of 4 on the plane, and made his way forward. Row by row, past unconscious passengers, past faces he knew. When no one came out of the cockpit, he did what no one else could. He unlocked the flight deck door, and what he found inside was worse than silence. For over an hour, Flight 522 drifted silently across Greek airspace, a ghost gliding through perfect sky. It should have landed in Athens, but it didn't. It circled again and again, never descending. Air traffic control was out of options. They called the military. 2 F-16s were scrambled to intercept. The fighter jets pulled up alongside the airliner. From the outside, everything looked normal. No damage, no distress signals. Just a plane refusing to respond. Then one of the fighter pilots flew closer, peering into the cockpit. 2 figures sat motionless. The pilots, still in their seats, lifeless. And then, something moved. A shadow shifted in the captain's seat. Someone was there. Someone was alive. Andreas Prodromo. He had made it into the cockpit. He had tried the radio. No one heard him. He tried to fly, but he wasn't trained for this aircraft. And now, he was running out of time. The fighter jet pulled even closer. Andreas looked up and saw him. Face to face, through inches of reinforced glass, 2 men locked eyes in a sky full of silence. And then, Andreas pointed, one arm raised, hand extended downward toward the earth below. A final gesture, desperate, deliberate, clear. But what did it mean? Was he asking the jet not to shoot them down? Was he trying to signal that they were all already gone? Was he saying, "It's too late"? Or, "Please, help me land"? No one knows. No one will ever know. It was the last moment any living person was seen aboard Helios Flight 522. What would you have done if you were in his place? Alone at 34,000 feet. No co-pilot, no captain, no hope. Just 100 unconscious souls behind you. And one chance to make it count. Andreas never spoke a word to the fighter jet. But in that single gesture, he may have said everything. Moments after that final gesture, Helios 522 began to descend. Not smoothly, not under control. A sudden left turn, a sharp drop. The fighter jets followed, watching helplessly as the airliner pitched downward, losing altitude fast. 10,000 meters. 8, 5, 2. There was no fire, no explosion, no structural failure. And at 12:03 p.m., the plane slammed into a hillside near Grammatico, a rural slope north of Athens. There were no survivors, no Mayday heard, no last transmission received. Just a bright blue sky and a flash of orange fire where 121 stories ended. Among them, a young couple on their way to an island honeymoon. A father called in to fill a shift he wasn't meant to take. A girlfriend he sat beside. A dream he never got to chase. And Andreas, who spent his final hour doing what no one else could. Fighting, climbing, trying, until the very end. No glory, no hero's ending. Just a man who didn't give up. Not even when everything around him had already gone still. In the hours after the crash, fire crews reached the hillside. Wreckage was scattered across the slope, still smoking, still quiet. There were no survivors to question, no witnesses from inside the plane, only wreckage and silence. But the investigators began to dig. What they found would leave more questions than answers. The cockpit voice recorder, damaged. The flight data recorder, recovered. One thing was clear. The aircraft was perfectly flyable. There had been no fire, no mechanical failure, no explosion, just fuel exhaustion. But why? Why did no one descend? Why did no one respond? Why did a commercial airliner become a ghost ship in the sky? Days passed. The black box data revealed something chilling. The plane had been on autopilot for nearly the entire flight. The pilots had stopped responding just minutes after takeoff. And then, something even more disturbing. The oxygen masks in the cabin had deployed. But only portable bottles had been used in the cockpit, meaning the crew had lost cabin pressure and likely lost consciousness. But how? What caused the loss of pressure? Why didn't the pilots notice? And why, despite all the warnings, didn't they respond? Then, one small panel, recovered from the wreckage, offered the clue no one expected. The pressurization control switch, a simple knob on the overhead panel, was found in the wrong position, manual, not auto. And that changed everything. That meant the aircraft wouldn't pressurize on its own. And at 30,000 feet without pressurization, you don't get a second chance. You get hypoxia, confusion, slurred speech, then unconsciousness, then death. So how did it happen? Earlier that morning, engineers ran a routine test. To do it, they switched the pressurization system to manual. But when the test ended, They forgot to switch it back. Hours later, the flight crew entered the cockpit and didn't notice. When the alarms sounded mid-flight, they misread them. The takeoff configuration warning was really a sign the cabin wasn't pressurizing. But it sounded like a runway alarm, one they'd heard hundreds of times, but never at altitude. They thought it was a glitch, focused on cooling fans and circuit breakers, not oxygen. By the time ground control asked,
Flight 522, can you confirm? Is your pressurization panel set to auto?
it was too late. Andreas Prodromou was the only one who remained conscious. A flight attendant, off duty, not a pilot, but trained and determined. With a portable oxygen tank, he made it to the cockpit. The alarms were still flashing. The pilots were gone. The plane was still flying. He tried the radio, called Mayday, but no one heard him. The frequency was still set to Cyprus. He tried to fly. He tried to save them. And in his final moment, when the fighter jet pulled up beside him, he pointed down, a gesture no one could fully interpret. Was he asking to be brought down? Was he surrendering to the inevitable? We'll never know. But that moment was the last time anyone saw life inside Helios Flight 522. A single switch, a missed step, and 121 lives lost not in fire or explosion, but in silence. Today, on the hillside where the plane came down, a memorial stands. But among all the faces, one story echoes louder than the rest. Andreas. He didn't belong in the cockpit, but he was the last one left, and he never gave up. The final voice of Helios 522. Gone, but never silent.